Hello and welcome to There's No Place Like Summer Camp. I'm your host, Andrew Waterhouse, and in today's episode, in case you can't tell, I'm pretty under the weather. So come into our tent and I'll spill the beans. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of There's No Place Like Summer Camp. Now, you might have seen from the description of this podcast episode that I have COVID again. It's probably my fourth run-in with COVID, and I think it's either the second or third time that I've tested positive now. Ah, man, and the symptoms are nowhere near as bad as the first time I had COVID. It tends to feel more like a cold, and especially a bunged up one. Yesterday, I felt okay, and then when it came to the night time, it very much hit me sideways. The symptoms I've been having have been lasting for probably maybe about 4 or 5 days. So, yeah, it's just another fun day in my life, isn't it? So, yeah, that's great. The first time I caught COVID, in case you haven't heard that episode, that was from a holiday to Prague. This time around, I have no idea where it's come from. It's probably from some house viewings, or it might have been, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, going into work, like, yeah, I haven't really been doing anything exciting or going abroad. But anyway, I thought I'd persevere with a brand new episode for you guys. And what I was thinking is, what exactly do I want this episode to be? And I've been pondering, and I've been trying to think of more topics to discuss about summer camp and all the helpful information that I could think of off the top of my head. And I think this one is going to be about how Scouts relates to volunteering at Camp America, because I found it to be the best way to experience what summer camp will be like, to go and volunteer. So we can talk about Scouts, we can talk about Camp America, we can talk about the other ways that you can get that experience to go and volunteer abroad, and people hire you based on the experience that you've been doing in the UK or wherever you're listening from. Yeah, it's been a crazy week, I'd say, in the life of me. It's been a week of house viewings. Over the weekend, I went to the National Football Museum in Manchester. I also went to an arcade club. I went on a escape room. All of these different things, and I'm just like, oh, for God's sake, I've just caught COVID and I've just done like 4 or 5 like big things around Manchester. But the thing is with COVID now is you're sort of okay to, I don't know. I sound so grim. You're sort of okay to just carry on with life as normal, and it's just strange because it's still a pandemic, it's still going on. You still hear people that are getting positive, and even if you have the vaccine or not, it hits people differently. Now, I might as well tell you guys, I shouldn't be ashamed to say that I haven't had any vaccinations. When I first contracted COVID, it was August of 2020, which was like quite an early stage of the COVID sort of era, I guess. And that was when the UK government opened up travel to different countries where they would have a traffic light system. Now, going abroad with Scott, who's been on the podcast before, and our friend, we went to Prague, and the Czech Republic was a green country, and when we got there it felt like a green country as well. No one was wearing masks, no one was social distancing, people were hugging, kissing, you name it. It was like a normal country, and it was a nice change of pace. Then lo and behold, when we get back to the UK, we start developing symptoms, and it hit us sideways. And ever since then, I haven't really felt the need to go and get a vaccine, because I'm not anti-vax. I have to be clear. I'm not anti-vax. If you want to go and get a vaccine, go and get a fucking vaccine. But I think it should be up to the people to decide whether you want a vaccine or not. And especially when I'm seeing you need, what, four vaccines now, and you need to have a booster every year. It feels like a money grab from pharmaceutical companies, making the most of a situation rather than actually delivering something that will just get it sorted for the greater good of humanity. And you can sort of see that with these subscription type models, and you see the government doing Christmas parties, and the media, how they collude to try and encourage everyone to go and do these things because the media and the government are in bed with each other. So I've always had the opinion that I got over COVID myself in August of 2020, back when vaccines weren't even a thing. And for the greater part of 2 years, I've avoided COVID since, and now I've had it again, and it just feels sort of like a cold, really. And I think especially being in the younger generation of a millennial, it doesn't really feel like I need to have a vaccine. And especially when you can get vaccinated and then still be positive, it's like, okay, so you're sort of, in my opinion, over-exaggerating the benefits of actually getting a vaccine, because you can still have symptoms and you can still get ill by having COVID and the vaccine. So in my eyes, they're sort of trying to pull the wool over our eyes. But that's my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. I think if you need to go to Camp America these days, you might need to actually have a vaccine. How many you would need to get across, I don't know. That'll be something that Camp America can certainly help you with. Anyway, this episode is all about how Scouts helped me get into Camp America. So, in case you don't know, before I went to camp, I was 21 at the time that I applied to go to Camp America. The vast majority of my experience that I could say I volunteered and worked with kids was with my local Scout troop, and they're in Potter's Bar. And yeah, it was a good few years of, well, I say a few years, it's a vast majority of my childhood, teenagehood, where I volunteered with the Cubs and Scouts over there. And it was a very big part of growing up. And I was there before, my brothers, my dad, my sisters all became part of it too. So when I joined the Cubs group, I don't know, how old do you join Cubs nowadays? Like 9 years old? Is that roughly about how old you are to be in Cubs? Yeah, I fell in love with it, and that's definitely something I really want to bring my kids up on when I hopefully have them one day. It's definitely something that instills a level of discipline, and it gets you outdoors, and it makes you a ton of friends. So working with Scouts, well, let me begin by being a Cub and being a Scout. I was a Cub all the way through from beginning to end. Loved it. I went over to Scouts and I found it was a complete change of atmosphere. It had a different kind of leader that was running it all, and it just wasn't fun anymore. So I quit after probably my first month, and my parents could easily see why when they came to collect me, and they saw like the stark difference. So after I quit Scouts, I came back to Cubs and was sort of like a young leader, but it was quite a loose term because all of my friends have always been younger than me. That's just like my friendship group that I gravitate towards. They've always been younger than me. So when I came back to Cubs, I was back with my friends, and I could pass myself off as a young leader. So for many years, there was this friendship group that, they would work their way through the ranks, they would pass through the age of going into scouts, and then they would come and help at cub camps too, or they would move on to scouts, and then I would occasionally pop my head in there as well. So that was a good few years, and it was great because scouts, I think, gives you the closest thing to what summer camp is really like, because anyone that's done scouts or cubs, at least in my troop, would definitely say that the highlight of being in those sort of groups is the camp outs and the getting away from parents and staying overnight with your friends in a tent somewhere in the middle of nowhere, or doing a campfire. And that's what Camp America is all about. So I think volunteering at a summer camp is identical to what it's like at a Scouts. The only difference is that you're going to be around a lot older people in Camp America, because you're going to have most people are 21 and over. It also helps if you've done something like Scouts before, especially if you've volunteered anywhere. It doesn't really have to be Scouts, but any sort of like group where you're helping, say it's like a horse riding place in Cheshire, for instance. If you've been volunteering there for a while, you'd be ideal for a horse riding camp in Camp America. And just doing some volunteering work is good for your psyche anyway, because it helps ground you and it helps like develop connections with loads of people. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to go and work at Camp America, definitely go out there, go and volunteer. Scouts for me was probably the closest that I got to having that experience to go and volunteer at a summer camp and be hired. Loads of people go about it in different ways. So if you have a particular specialty that you'd like to go and teach over in Camp America, if you want to be a counsellor, there's definitely different ways that you can try and approach this. For instance, you could go and volunteer at a school, you could be a teacher at a school, and you just want that break between the summers of the downtime that the teachers get. You could also be a football specialist over at summer camp, where your experience that gets you there is maybe a university degree, and you've been doing a little bit with kids in part of your course. The different avenues that you can take to go and volunteer at summer camp are vast. You don't have to shoot yourself down just because you don't have the volunteering experience. It certainly does help, but if you have a passion behind the eyes, you'll be more than welcomed to try and apply through the program, and it's well worth applying and seeing what Camp America would think of you, as well as what the camps themselves would think of your application too. So for me, Scouts was a massive part of what made Camp America to be honest. I think if I hadn't done those years of being a cub, being a scout, and experiencing what it's like to be on the younger side, and as like a camper in a sense, you'd sort of miss out on having that experience of going to Camp America and being on the staff side. So I hope this episode opens your eyes to the different avenues of volunteering with Camp America and getting yourself in the door of a summer camp. I do apologise again for my COVID-19. Thankfully, it's not transmissible over the airwaves, so you're all safe. But oh my god, I think give it a week and I'll be back to normal. But for now, it's a croaky voice and sniffles for me. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. thanks for all the support. Once again, there is the book that's out at the minute. It's available on Amazon. You can go and search There's No Place Like Summer Camp. You can also pick up some merchandise. If you go to there'snoplacelikesummercamp.com, you can order yourself a t-shirt, and I'll very much appreciate any sort of tweets or Instagram tags where you guys are wearing that merch. That'd be really cool to see, and you can represent There's No Place Like Summer Camp around your camp. That'd be awesome. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it here. I'll see you next Tuesday, and wish me all the best as I recover from COVID yet again.